My guest today is Ben Stewart, born in US. He's a filmmaker and musician. He has filmed and produced Esoteric Agenda, Kymatica, Ungrip and Waking Infinity. Creator of popular documentary that can be found in Gaia, Limitless, based on a series of 13 episodes. This series explores the human potential and medicine plant, shamanic state, posture. I mean, so many interesting subjects. He's also a spiritual coach, and he's married and father of 3 kids. I believe he's a strong voice for the future generation and a true master. Thank you for taking the time to talking to me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for that amazing intro.
Tell us a little bit about what were you doing today with everything that is happening, and I want to know how you are dealing with everything. What is your opinion a little bit, and basically some tips for people out there, how you take this time of so much stress and uncertainty.
Yeah, thank you. Really good question, very relevant today. Today specifically, I'm doing very well. This year I've really dialed into a pattern. So I have twin boys, they're 1-year-old, and I have a 5-year-old daughter. And so my wife and I, we kind of know where we're at the night before to know who's going to wake up with the kids the following morning. So I'd say today I'm doing very well because I woke up really early. And my boys, we just have dance parties in the morning. And then my daughter wakes up and they're into this movie called The Greatest Showman with Zac Efron and Hugh Jackman. So we listen to that music and just dance around. It wakes us up. We go outside. It's been a little bit more brisk lately. Yeah. Really just connecting and engaging and using our bodies and not hopping directly into work. So the day is always perfect when I started off like that, when I really engage with the kids. They're my teachers for the most part. And I think today, more generally, like in today's day and age, 2020, I hear a lot of things like there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of upheaval. And, these are just words, and these are ways of us collectively expressing what we see is happening outside of us. And I'm a firm believer that what's happening outside of us is also our teacher. And so I do everything in my power not to take stress that seems to be coming from the outside world too seriously, and then to also acknowledge that if you get trapped and you identify with the stress, then that's usually because you're not being the artist anymore. You've squashed your creativity and you're falling into the formula that everybody else has already played into on social media, all the stuff that they're sharing. So what I like to do is turn everything like that on its head. And so when I'll go through my feed and I'll see that there's all these protests going on throughout America. Everyone's talking about the elections coming up.
It's its intensity is a lot happening, a lot of argument in there, a lot of information coming from them out here, making everything more anxious.
Yeah. All we need to do is acknowledge it. And I like what Greg Braden says at the end of his book, The Science of Self-Empowerment. He says, ask yourself 3 questions whenever you're faced with a big challenge or a decision or stress, is to first ask yourself, do I recognize that I have a choice? Because the first thing is recognizing that you have a choice. And then when you at least acknowledge that, then you kind of crack open. I named that series that you said, Waking Infinity, because I really believe that when we begin to awaken that within us, it all happens with a question. It's not with having all the answers. It's really by asking the most relevant questions and then listening to the many languages that life may speak back to you in. Yeah. And for me, we always have a choice. And I won't get into the rest of where Greg Braden takes that. I'm just going to stop right there and say that acknowledging that we have a choice allows us to step back into the artist's mind and acknowledging that, yes, every time I go through my feed, I'm seeing people that are showing the protests and they're angry and they want their voice to be heard. So I just leave the anger out of it. That's a great expressivity. It's a great way to acknowledge where people are at. But then when you take a few breaths and you acknowledge that we have a choice of whether we identify with all this heat, this anger, or if we decide to sing a different tune. Yeah. So I'm an artist, I'm a singer, a songwriter, filmmaker, and I always acknowledge that it was about 11, 12 years ago when I first started making my films. And I decided, I wanted to start making these films that get into uncomfortable truths, like uncomfortable topics for people to look at. But then I always give it a twist ending at the end. And I say, listen, none of this is anything to panic over. In fact, this is the perfect moment for us to realize that we've disempowered ourselves and we've bought the lie that we are small and insignificant. This thing where, we like to tell each other, well, yeah, one person can change the entire world. But in a way, we're not meant to change the entire world. We're meant to change within and glow and radiate.
I think that people get frustrated because you say, how can they do this? They haven't got there yet. Just be patient and try to guide them to get there. Yeah. With patience and love and understanding. There is a trauma in there happening as well.
For sure. When trauma starts releasing itself, it'll come out exactly like we're seeing what's happening in the world today. Yeah. It could be through a plant medicine journey. It could be through the loss of a loved one. It can be through just a rude awakening to an aspect of reality that we hadn't been seeing before. And in a way, that's the wave of life. And I say that, when it's really challenging like it is in the world today, it's the perfect time to acknowledge that there's beauty underneath it that's just waiting to come out. And also in quiet times when it seems like everything's perfect, I think that's the perfect time to acknowledge this also will pass. These perfect times will go back to a period where we need to grow and learn, and we're that piece of coal and all the pressure is going to turn us into a diamond, but we have to experience the pressure first. Exactly. So really everything that I do is just to show us that no matter what, we have all the tools within us. And a lot of the times I like to express the uncomfortable truths that we like to say, man, these devices, we need to get rid of them. Technology, it's destroying, our social interaction. These phones aren't doing a thing that we aren't asking of them, right? So we may notice like, oh, you go to a restaurant or you sit on a bus and everyone's on their phone. They are exercising their choice. That's what's really happening. This, if it wasn't this, it would be something else, right? And yes, I'm sure if we didn't have the phones, we may be talking more, but I remember, seeing images of people on trains a while back and everyone had their face in a newspaper or a magazine.
We feel so uncomfortable within us that we're trying to distract ourselves with all this or technology or addictions or, in the beginning when all this started, the pandemic, I thought this was a great opportunity for people to make big changes. I thought 3 months, I think this is great for the soul and the planet to revive. And I felt it was a little bit the planet coming back to us, giving a punch on the face, saying, what are you doing? Now you're going back inside. You're not allowed to go out. You're not allowed to do anything. Flies are over. I actually was excited about what this could bring, the changes this could bring for good.
Well, so I feel that there's that old Chinese story where there's this Chinese man and he was on his property, working the field, and he broke his leg, and everyone's like, oh, that's so unfortunate. And he said, we'll see. And then a war starts and they come to round up one person from every family and he can't go to war. So everyone says, oh, you're so fortunate. And he says, we'll see. And then it turns out he needs to keep plowing the field and he can't. And everyone says, oh, so unfortunate. He said, well, we'll see. And the story keeps going back and forth like this. And really, I think this is what Taoism is. You're not holding the amazing things in life and running away from the darker parts of life. you're looking at life as if it is a teacher coming in a different form, not just a human form. It's coming in every form, and it's here to teach us this is life. So if we have expectations of what our life should yield, like my life, I should have this much money or this much success by this age, and I want these things in my life to be representative of my success, then we have all these ideas that most of them are probably not going to come true. And we're not going to know how to let them go. We'll call it a failure. We'll hold that in our body somewhere as a trauma, and we won't know how to let that go because we want to stay strong and not look vulnerable in front of people. There's a lot of paradoxes going on right now, and I kind of feel like what we could be doing a lot more is acknowledging that the paradoxes in life, the things that we see are one thing, are actually both. We're just not seeing the dark side of the moon, if you will. And I believe that if we are expressing ourselves with humility, and we are being true and authentic to ourselves, and we're always practicing compassion, always practicing compassion, especially for those that it's most difficult to. The ones that we would love to hate, those are the moments, especially when we're feeling that like, I really cannot stand that person or this institution or whatever it is. That probably has the deepest lesson of beauty, humility, surrender without going limp, and also an acknowledgement that we weren't ever given a memo from God saying we are owed anything in this life. I could have died 20 years ago in an automobile accident, right? But I'm still here. I'm grateful for that rather than looking at my bank account or what's happening in 2020 saying this should be different.
Yeah, you still can appreciate the good things in life, like even our children's, right? Like whatever something gets a bit difficult, I look back to my kids, right? And I see that beauty there, and I see what I have created, and I see how content they are, how healthy they are, and how safe they are with me. And I say, thank you, God.
You're definitely right. Children are our teachers in so many ways. And if you don't have children, just remember that you yourself are a child of God. And also your children are anyone you can serve with your love. That's the greatest point of it. If you have community and you don't have children, you can give the same love back. If you have a garden, if you have pets, right? But we know inside whether we are actually doing what our soul intends for us to do. And it doesn't require money. We just have a hard time seeing how we can do what we think we're supposed to be doing on this planet without money, without all the resources, without all the opportunities that pretty much movies and media tells us this is what success looks like. And for the most part, we get these expectations and we have these high ideals of what it's going to look like when we've arrived. But the thing is we can't even answer the smallest or the most fundamental, I should say, questions in the world, which are, who am I? Why am I here? What am I meant to be doing with my short glimpse of life on this planet? Because let's be honest, it's a glimpse that we're given here. It's very short. So if we can't answer those questions, answering all the little stuff, like this is like, I love science, but when I look at the institutions of science, I'm like, these are people, right? They're people. And really, it's always mob rule, whether it's in governments, whether it's institutions or corporations, whether it's the institution of science, it's all mob rule. If you look at science, not all scientists are on the same page. Not all scientists believe in the same things. And even when you see something and you can reproduce something in science, there are other people who say, I have a different model for how that makes sense in my model.
We cannot just assume things are the way they are, because depending where you are standing, it's going to be the result. It's always different.
Yeah. I can't tell you the amount of scientists that I've met that they can answer anything about stereochemistry. They can answer anything about all these little questions, right? But you ask them who they are, and they're identified with so many things that you take one of those away, they won't know who they are, right? If, like an athlete, sadly enough, you take one of their limbs away or something like that, or they don't make the cut of the team, who are they at that point? And I can't tell you, it definitely sounds like a line, that you can read in so many self-empowerment books, but really, your greatest friends, your greatest lessons in the world are your failures.